All right, so let's talk about the protest slash riots in Ferguson, Missouri. We're talking about this in the context of what's been happening on the ground with the citizens there, not even, separate from the Mike Brown shooting. People are out protesting, and the local police basically treated protesters like criminals in the beginning. Then, and I don't know if you haven't been keeping up with the news coverage, you might not know this. One of the things that's going on is when these smaller suburban towns outside of St. Louis, in St. Louis County, have basically have to deal with issues that involve large numbers of people, like these big protests and riots, if you will. They actually have agreements with each other to come to each other's assistance. They have understandings that, and what they'll do is they will coordinate together. They will come out of their jurisdiction and into whatever jurisdiction is in need of their help and assist them. So those first couple of nights before the governor asked the state troopers to come in, Captain Johnston, you had these, everybody kind of said, well, the police are doing the best they can, and that I won't argue that they're not. I'm not going to try to say that they're not, but they were basically, bringing in people from other cities. Understandable, right? But these police officers from other cities are coming in, and they don't know the people in that neighborhood. They don't know the people in those in that city, and some very irregular things went on, and they're still going on as of last night. So let's break some of that down. The police in Ferguson, and not necessarily the Ferguson police again, it could be from one of the surrounding towns, were basically dealing with riot situations going on at the same time that peaceful protests were going on, and that makes it hard for any police department to figure out how to handle it right. Let's face it. Let's just put that out there. This is not a video where I just go, the police are wrong and they're bad. This is, that's a reality. But the police were actively working at stifling the press. And that is a seriously bad situation. It is a very bad situation when you have press identification on in a McDonald's, inside a building, in a McDonald's, and the police come in. Police who, by the way, weren't wearing badges. They didn't have their badges at least showing. They might have had them under their flak jackets, in military-style gear. And they come in and they say, look, we can't protect you. If you stay here, we're leaving this area. We will not respond to any 911 calls in this area. So you need to leave. And if you don't, we can't protect you. So reporters one was, I believe, from Huffington Post, one was from the Washington Post. These are major news outlets, by the way, in case you didn't know. They're big. They cover national news, so on and so forth. They were, the police came back in 5 minutes after they left, after they made the announcement that they wouldn't be protected, and said, we've decided we are going to evacuate this area, and you are going to leave. Get your stuff, and let's go. So the reporters were asking questions. Why are you making us leave? Why are you forcing us to get out of a McDonald's, a closed building? And they're collecting up all their stuff because they were taking a break and they were recharging their phones, because at this point, it was already kind of known on the ground that if you were carrying a big camera, you were likely to have the police come and try to push you out of the area, because they don't want the press, in my opinion, they don't want the press to see what they're doing so that they can control and manage the story that gets out, despite what may or may not have happened. So this man who's collected up his stuff, and he hadn't zipped his bag up, I guess, he is heading out. Something occurs, he trips, I don't know what happens, but he drops his bag and stuff spills out, and he's like, you need to get, the police officer's like, you need to go, you need to get that, let's go. He's like picking it up off the ground. He goes, I'm trying to get my stuff. He hears some officer, I don't think he could say where he came from, where the words came from, but an officer goes, take him. They grab him, they grab his bag, they arrest him. The other guy is filming with his cell phone. They take both of them into custody. They don't know what their charge is, but at some point in time, while they're sitting waiting to be, I don't know, processed, they get a call into their managing editor, and he calls the mayor or somebody high up and says, you realize you have police officers arresting the press. That is not a good idea. You know, these stories are going to be told, and very soon after that, I don't know, I think they were probably in custody a couple hours, they were released. On another night, not last night, but the night before last, I know that Chris Hayes from MSNBC, who has a national news show, they threatened to mace him. It's like these police officers don't know, they don't know that they have people from major news outlets in their area, or they do and they don't care, but they're telling people to move back. Chris Hayes they threatened to mace him if he didn't keep moving back or something. And then at some point in time, they kind of realized that they were dealing with somebody who was really going to be able to give them bad press, and they let him go. And then they were still pushing everybody else back, while him and his film crew were still able to stand there and report. Yesterday, 2 other major news outlet reporters were arrested, and I think that they were let go later on in the day as well. But the police, including the state troopers at this point, as of yesterday, I don't know who, I can't tell you one police department from the other to say who's doing it, but they're working in concert, and I haven't, it is obvious, considering what's happened in the last few days, that no one is insisting that the press be allowed to move freely so that they can report on what's happening. And that leaves people suspicious of what the police are or are not doing. They keep claiming they have very good reasons to break up crowds. Peaceful protesters are saying, look, we were broken up for no reason. We were doing what they were saying. We were continuing to move. They said that there won't be a curfew, but you have to keep moving. You can't stand in one place. There were people standing in one place, but they're making up rules as they go each night on what they're going to let people do. And it seems like every night, if some small group or some amount of the people aren't doing what they're supposed to do, they break up everybody. And if you're not moving fast enough when they decide to break it up, they basically engage in the same tactics with peaceful protesters as they engage in with the people who might be rioting or who are not follow the instructions. There were peaceful protesters who chose not to follow instructions of the police and stood still. That's essentially all they did. The streets were blocked off so that no cars could come up it, and yet they said, in that area where the streets are blocked off, you are not allowed to stand at all. You have to keep moving. You have to be walking. And I don't understand exactly why that is. I'm not saying that it's not legitimate. I don't know. I'm just saying I don't know what the logic is. So, but then people decided that, this is our neighborhood, and some percentage of them stood in place, and they were warned. They were warned for a long time. It was like 10, 11 minutes that they kept saying, you need to disperse. You need to get moving. You cannot stand here. And then again, tear gas was launched at the protesters. I have seen pictures of, one was of a priest. It looked like she was maybe an Episcopalian priest, female, who had a wound from a rubber bullet that literally gouged a hole in her skin. It didn't go that deep. And then there was a bruise that looked like it was about 3-4 inches in diameter. And so they're shooting rubber bullets at people, which leave nasty marks. And if they get you in the eye, you're going to lose an eye. They're very serious kind of ordinance. And so one thing's for sure, it has gotten live and it has gotten nasty out there, and people need to be careful. People need to follow the police's instructions no matter what, but the police need to calm down and stop going straight to tear gas and violence to deal with crowds and find some other ways. By the way, Amnesty International is on the scene observing this thing because their observations from their point of view is that the United States, the St. Louis County operations, whether it be the state troopers or the police, is in violation of UN laws. You cannot fire upon and use ordnance against people who are not using violence against you. The police are starting the violence in many of these cases because people aren't following orders of the police, and that's not necessarily, when you're dealing with a protest, the way that happens. If people aren't about to be arrested because they committed a crime, the police do not have the right to use violence to get people to stop doing what they're doing. You can use that kind of stuff against people who are violating the law, but they're not trespassing if they're on the street or on the sidewalk. They are protesting, and that is a First Amendment right. So those are my opinions about just protesting and riots in Ferguson over the last 4 days or so.